So, hello again. Today I'm going to talk to you about a thing you can't even buy in the shops, which is a bit weird. You might be able to make it yourself with a bit of help, possibly from me. We'll see whether it's interesting to you or not. What I've got here is what I call a crossfading looper or a drone looper. Now, it's something I wanted to do for ages and never quite got around to it. Either I couldn't find the right bit of technology to make it work for me, or I was too busy doing other things. And he's just got left on the back burner, and a few years went by. And I thought, anyway, I finally got round to making this thing, and I'd like to show you it. It's rather nice. You're probably aware how a normal looper works. You play something, and it plays it straight back at you. So, and these loops are great for looping phrases and for the sort of Ed Sheeran type stuff where you loop a thing and you build up loops and all that sort of thing. And then I have one of those, and they're lovely, and I use it a lot. So how a normal looper works is you have your phrase here and it just repeats it. So effectively just adds it on the end like that. Now that's great for doing normal looping stuff, obviously, because that's what most people do. In fact, almost everybody does that because, as far as I can tell, that's the only sort of looper that's available. But if you're trying to do drones, that's unhelpful because if I take this drone sample here and I loop it, I play it to the end because it's quite long. There's an annoying gap at the end. And also, if it doesn't quite match up, because that one is the same note, but if you have loops that have phases in them, flanges, and they don't match up, there's quite a jarring effect when you get to the cross between the two loops. So what I wanted was a crossfading looper that does that. So when you go from the end of one loop to the start of the next, it goes seamlessly like this. And that can run forever and ever. Now obviously you can see there we're losing time. Normally that's the amount of time the loop would take, and now it's taking that amount of time. So we've lost a bit on the end there, and the more you loop it, the more time you will lose. So it's no good for doing phrases, but if you've got a loop that's not in any particular time, just want it to run along in the background, it's perfect. The hardware or even software to do this didn't seem to exist that I could find. There seems to be no market for it, maybe, or maybe there is and no one's really thought of it. I'm not really sure. A company called Expert Sleepers here in the UK do a crossfading looper synth, which has a crossfading looper effect. And it does something similar, but it's very hands-on, it's very mousy, which I don't like. And it also runs as a VST inside a laptop. So, and I don't like gigging with laptops. I've said this before. It's not something I want to do. I did it for a while. Not fun. Don't enjoy it. If you do, that's fine. Fill your boots. But I don't want to. So that didn't go anywhere. I did write a prototype version of this in Max, previously known as Max MSP. And that did do what I wanted it to do. It required a controller, foot pedal, and another laptop again. So it did do what I wanted, but only if I had a laptop with me. Although I did write that and it was a proof of concept, I never actually really used it. I could have written it in PD and downloaded it onto some things, but I never really got it to work in PD for some reason. So that didn't really get anywhere either. My other thought was to do it with the owl pedal. I got this many years ago. Remember the owl pedal? I tried looking into that because it will run PD and you can write your own code in C, C++. But partly because of its age and partly because of what they were really trying to do with it, it doesn't have enough memory in it to do a loop. You've got about a quarter of a second of a loop or something, which is not really useful, particularly if you're doing big drones. So that didn't work either. So then I thought, well, I'm already using a Raspberry Pi for MIDI routing and for a MIDI looper, which I haven't shown you, which I might show you if anybody's interested in that. I thought, well, can I add some audio to that? So, because these things are quite small, that's the Raspberry Pi that I use, it's a Raspberry Pi 3, got 4 USBs on it. Thought, can I use one of those? Problem with the Raspberry Pi is the audio on it is just a headphone socket and it's pretty rubbish. So that wasn't very good. So I had a look around on the internet, and at the time I was doing it I couldn't find any sensible audio for the Raspberry Pi. Then when I looked again a year or so ago, no, probably even less than that, a few months ago, I found PiSound, which was a Kickstarter a year or so ago, which has professional quality audio in and audio out, and also some 5-pin DIN MIDIs on it as well. And that looked very nice. So I ordered that in the case that came with it, and this is the PiSound here. You can see it down there. It's a bit bigger than a normal Raspberry Pi if I compare it to the Pi here. It's a bit bigger, but quite usable. Quite nice size. See the track size. It's stereo. I'm using it as a mono at the moment, but it is stereo, which is good. So that's good. So I built that, and I started writing the software for it. So I already had sort of code, because obviously this was a MIDI looper and a MIDI router, I already had code to drive sort of other things in it, like a soft step, which I used for the MIDI looper. So I thought, well, I'll just add a couple of extra functions to that, so the soft step can then drive the crossfading looper inside the Raspberry Pi, and we're golden. So that's what I did. So the code is in Rust. I'll show you a bit of the code if you're interested. It's just one file. This is the first piece of DSP code I've ever written, so it's probably not going to be brilliant, but it does seem to work. So if I show you just roughly it working here, now I've got no delay and reverb. I've got a bit of reverb. There's very little sort of effects on this, so I'm just going to show you exactly what it will do. And it fades out. And you probably didn't notice there, but it fades in as well. So if I show you to start it, please. So it fades in as well, so you get a clean transition when you're playing. And yeah, it's good. So you can do sort of weird sort of all these things, they just loop seamlessly. And then fade out at the end, which is really nice. And it even works on the guitar bit. So if you've got a guitar with a sustain unit on it, this works really nicely. Funny. And yes, I am using the Planet Waves lead the wrong way around. I forgot when I plugged it into the violin. So the bottom button is record and play, and the top button is stop clear. This is about the minimum number of buttons I found for you to be useful in a looper. So if I do and it is seamless between the loops. What you need to remember is because it's crossfading between the end of the loop and the start of the loop, you are losing time on the loop. So you cannot use this as a phrase looper. It will lose your notes because it'll blur together, the last few notes. So that's why I call it a drone looper some of the time, because it's only really useful for drones. I mean, I showed you with the notes there just for convenience, but it's really only useful for sort of, you can do sort of. So if I try and use that as a phrase looper. You see, really, at the end of the phrase, it all gets melded together. We've lost the last part of the phrase. Because of the way I timed that, it actually sounded quite good, but often it will be a real mess. So if you look at the code, some of the bits I've got there are hard-coded. The fade-in time, the fade-out time, the crossfade time, they're all hard-coded. They're basically worked on what I wanted. They can easily be changed, but currently you need to recompile it. If I was going to write this as a plugin, then those would be the defaults. You can change to what you like. But currently there's no way of changing them. I did think of using TouchOSC to do parameter changes, but I basically wanted it to be as simple as possible just to do it. I wanted a pedal, basically, a crossfading pedal, but no such thing exists, and this is the nearest I've managed to get. There's a button on the top which you can program to do all sorts of things with it, and that's not useful to make it into a pedal, sadly, because it's surrounded by these things here. It's not big enough. You can't hit it with your foot, and if you did, wearing shoes, you're likely to crush the whole thing to pieces. It's very specific to me, really, and what it does and how it works, but if anybody else is interested, let me know. I think it would work probably well as a plugin. I'm looking into running it as an LV2 plugin, because the PySound box comes with ModApp, I'm not sure if you know that's how you pronounce it, which is a pedal boardy type thing that runs in the box. And if things are LV2 plugins, you can add them to a pedal board thing. I'll show you a screenshot of that. And then you can change the parameters on the web interface to it. So that's quite nice. So that's a possibility. If people are interested in that, let me know in the comments, and I'll see what I can do about that. I've never written a plugin before, and it may take me a while, but I'd love to have a go at it actually. So that might be quite interesting. I think Reaper supports LV2s as well. Not sure about other DAWs. It's because this thing's going to be open source. I would not be releasing it as a VST if I do it at all. It would only be LV2. Maybe Clap if that becomes a thing. Bitwig get behind Clap as a plugin format. Anyway, let me know in the comments if this is useful or interesting to you, and we'll talk. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.